Well, hello once again and welcome back to Bible Bytes. Have you ever wondered what it means to take up your cross? Well, it's a phrase that we probably hear a lot in Christian circles and in churches, but I want to look at the biblical context for what it means to take up your cross. So we're going to look at a passage where Jesus directly addresses that. So I hope you're excited for what we're going to get into today. Let's get to it. All right, so like I said in that intro, today we're talking about taking up your cross. And this is a phrase that you've probably heard, this is just my cross to bear, or something along those lines. But I remember the first time that I read this passage where Jesus actually says this act of taking up your cross, and it kind of blew my mind when I started to realize the context in which this is taking place. So I want to read this passage and break it down. This is going to be a short Bible, but I think it's really important. So this is going to be in Luke chapter 9, verses 23 and 24. It says, "And he said to all," and this he is Jesus, "and he said to all, if anyone would come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me. For whoever would save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake will save it." All right, so this is an intense passage. And one of the things I really want to point out first of all is that this passage is Jesus talking before the crucifixion. This isn't Jesus talking post-resurrection. This is him talking before the crucifixion. So oftentimes, in Christian circles, I think we've kind of idolized the cross. This is something that, you might have a bunch of crosses hanging up on a wall in your house, or, a lot of people have a cross necklace. But the idea of the cross, it wasn't a religious symbol back then. So taking up your cross, that's not like taking up your religion or taking up your religious banner. This is literally like telling someone, take up your execution chair, take up your hangman's noose, take up your mode of death, because you're literally dying to yourself. Jesus is saying, if anyone will come after me, let him deny himself. And he's not talking about that in a small sense. He's talking about that in an absolute sense, in a complete sense. This idea of denying yourself. It's not denying yourself ice cream or denying yourself a nice treat at the end of the day, or denying yourself from. This is literally denying yourself, the whole self, everything that is yourself, denying yourself. Take up your cross daily. So it's not just that we take up this cross. The cross is the most brutal symbol of death that they had at the time that Jesus is giving this message. But he's saying, take up your cross daily and follow me. Whoever would save his life will lose it. And whoever loses his life for my sake will save it. This is the idea that if we're taking up our cross, we're giving up a whole lot of our life, of what we want it to be, our passions, our desires, our, 10-year goal, 20-year goal, 30-year goal, and we're taking up Jesus's desire for our life. We're taking up Jesus's desire for what our 10-year goal, 20-year goal, 30-year goal will be. We're losing our own plans for the future, and we're setting ourselves on the path of what Jesus has for us. So when Jesus calls us to take up a cross, this is just a quick reminder that it's not a religious call to action. It's not a religious, I got my cross necklace and I'm taking this up. Taking up your cross isn't bunkering down and bearing down in the midst of supposed persecution or anything like that. It's literally it's taking up your cross. It's taking up your method of death and denying yourself. Oftentimes in discipleship or whenever I'm teaching, I always use this idea of a throne check and asking, who's on the throne right now? Who's the one that's calling the shots? Is Jesus calling the shots, or are you calling the shots? Is Jesus in your life, but you're calling the shots, and you're hoping that Jesus is coming along with what you're calling? And I can find myself doing that quite a bit, where I'm wanting to call the shots and I'm wanting to include God in on my plans, but that's not what Jesus calls us to. He calls us to something that's very radical, that's very, whoever wants to save their life, has got to lose it. Whoever wants to lose his life for my sake, that's the one that's going to save it. It's a radical thought. And so when Jesus is calling the shots, it's going to look different than us calling the shots. And so when we're taking up our cross, next time you read this passage or that you hear that phrase, I hope you're reminded of One, just that Jesus is saying this. This is his words. This isn't just some religious phrase that has come over, the hundreds of years of Christianity, but this is something Jesus tells us to do. But this is something Jesus told us to do before he died on the cross. So he's not talking about it like a religious symbol. He's talking about it like a symbol of death. He's saying you need to be willing to lose your life for the gospel. You need to be willing to lay aside all of your future plans, your goals, your dreams for what I want to give you. And that sounds radical, that sounds intense, but that's what the gospel calls us to. It calls us to a radical, intense lifestyle that's very different than what the world tells us. The world tells us we can make our plans, we can make our hopes, we can make our dreams, and we can, maybe fit religion in with that. But Jesus doesn't call us to that. He calls us to an intense, passionate desire to follow him and put him on the throne and let him call the shots. Well, today was a little bit shorter of a Bible bite, but I wanted to break down that passage because it's been one that's just convicting me lately, and God's had it on my heart that if I'm really following him, I need to be willing to risk it all. I need to be willing to put him on the throne. I need to be willing to take up my cross daily and be reminded of the true meaning of that. So if you were encouraged by that, go ahead and like this video, share it on social media, subscribe to our channel if you haven't already, and we thank you for watching, and we hope to see you guys on tomorrow's Bible Bite.